That one's going on and off. All right. If I have to yell, I will. So, look, thank y'all for allowing me the opportunity to be here, and thank you for coming out, for spending your time to come out and for us to engage in this conversation. As you heard, I'm Tim. I am the Commissioner of Insurance, and since day one, and since before day one, I ran for this office to make a positive impact for the consumers, for you, the citizens of Louisiana, because it was my opinion that the system was broke. And that was before Laura, Delta, Zeta, and Ida. But certainly since then, it's been amplified. And you're going to hear, we didn't get in this crisis overnight. It's been years in the making. And we're not going to get out of this crisis overnight, but we are going to get out of it over time. And it's because of the reform, it's because of the changes that we are making. Some of those changes are regulatory. Some of those are the way that I regulate the office, the way that I hold insurance companies accountable, the way that I hold claims adjusters accountable, the way that, if you've seen press release, earlier last week, the way that I hold roofers accountable, bad actors. There's a lot of blame to go around, but we're in this crisis. We know it is a homeowner's crisis. After those 4 hurricanes I've mentioned, we had 12 companies that went insolvent. 12 companies that took your hard-earned wages, and then when you called with a claim, they were gone. They were insolvent. Part of the job of the Commissioner of Insurance is to regulate and hold insurance companies accountable and make sure, as the best you can, and we do have tools, that insurance companies have the proper financial resources, that they're buying the right amount of reinsurance, that they're charging appropriate rates. That's part of the job. But we had 12 companies go insolvent, and then we had another 24 plus effectively stop writing. They just said, you know what, we're not going to write anymore. We're not writing any new homeowners policies. We're just going to keep what we have. Some just said, we're exiting the state. We don't want to do business here anymore. And that's one of the things that I think that I want to just spend a little time just going over, is that insurance companies do not have to do business in the state of Louisiana. We have to attract their capital. We have to attract their business. We have to make sure that the regulations treat them fairly, just like we want to make sure and treat you fairly. But we've also got to make sure that the laws on the books are conducive to wanting them to come do business. Because if they aren't, and we've seen this happen, they'll take their money and they'll go to Texas or Mississippi or Alabama, Florida, North Carolina, California. They've got the whole country to choose from. So we've got to make sure that we're paying attention, as you heard earlier, the marketplace. We want to shape the marketplace so that companies come and do business in the state, just like we do for a lot of other industries that provide jobs. We want to make sure that the insurance industry is one that we welcome, but we also hold accountable. And so since I came in office, since I was sworn in January 8th, that's been my focus, is looking at the conditions and what do we need to change. And as you heard earlier, when we started this regular session, we had a package of bills that was designed to address where Louisiana was an outlier when it comes to some of the property issues. And with the help of the legislature and the governor, we passed those bills. And I think we went into session, we said this earlier, April 14th, is that March 14th, sorry, March 14th of this year, and by May 8th or May 10th, we had bills on the governor's desk to sign on property reform. And it was important that we did that as quickly as possible, because we wanted to make sure that the industry understood we were paying attention, but we also want to make sure that the reinsurance industry saw that, because companies had mid-year renewals. Reinsurance was either June or July or January 1st. And so we wanted to make sure that these changes were in effect as soon as possible so that you can benefit from the credit that insurance companies would get. And so we are on the right path. I stand here before and tell you we're on the right path with regards to property reform. We have companies that have filed applications to come and write business, homeowners business in Louisiana. It demonstrates that we're doing what needs to be done. But we're not stopping. We're going to continue, and we're going to continue to talk to more companies and attract more companies to come to Louisiana. And so I do know that we're on the right path with property reform. We also have an auto crisis in our state. Our rates are some of the highest in the country, if not the highest. And again, we can get into semantics, and if you think $50 is enough difference, whether you're number one or number two, then that's fine. But in my opinion, you know, when you're a state like ours, it's not as wealthy as some of our other states that we know, it's enough to be number one. But I can tell you this, in Louisiana, you as a consumer spend more of your gross income on insurance than any other state. We spend on average 7% of our gross income on insurance products, the highest in the country. That makes Louisiana the least affordable state in America for insurance. And that's what I know myself and legislators are fighting for, is to change that, to rebalance the system in Louisiana so that we attract companies and that you benefit from competition. And I've had several meetings today, and you know, they talk about, you know, I've heard that, you know, I got a wind mitigation survey, and I know I was talking to a gentleman earlier about that today. I got a wind mitigation survey, and my insurance went down by, I think it was $2,000. That's something we need to promote and let people know that that's something you can do. And look, not everybody is going to benefit to that level from a wind mitigation survey, but it's certainly worth inquiring and seeing if you can benefit from that. It is money that you could potentially save. So from my standpoint, I'm working with the legislature. We're changing laws. We're changing regulations. We're promoting the fortified roof program, and we can talk about that if you'd like. You know, we're trying to create an environment, again, where insurance companies want to come and do business. I can't control the weather. I can't do anything about the hurricanes or the tornadoes or floods or freezes, but we can focus on what we can control. And part of that is the physical risk. And when I talk about the fortified roof, that is a path to success for Louisianans. Especially here in South Louisiana, we're going to be exposed to hurricane winds. Mitigated roofs or fortified roofs are the way to go. It makes your home more insurable. It makes it more desirable. And if you have a fortified roof and your neighbor doesn't, I'm telling you, an insurance company is going to want to insure the fortified roof versus the one that's not. And so we've got some incentive programs out there for that to help give you grants. There's some tax credits that you can get if you put a fortified roof on yourself. And we're going to continue to work with the building code to see if we can, you know, on a go-forward basis, get more fortified roofs built. So with that, like I said, I can stand here and I'll certainly talk about anything you want, but I told Representative Carver when I came over that I was going to spend as little time talking and as much as I can answering your questions. And so with that, you know, I don't know if we've got a microphone for the audience, but however you want to handle that, I'm certainly happy to. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What do you think about the HO3 policy, whereby you subsidize and self-insure wind and hail? Because I have a lot of friends of mine that are skipping the wind and hail and rolling the dice and just getting the basic homeowner's policy.
So what do I think about if you purchase a policy that excludes wind and hail? Well, look, everybody has to make their own financial decision. It's certainly one that I would not take that one lightly. I mean, you know, if anything, if I would say something that keeps me up at night, it's the fact that I think that we've got a growing population that are going uninsured or underinsured on their homes. And look, if you don't have that peace of mind, that financial security by having insurance on your home, and something happens to it, I know what the end result's going to be. You know, that home's not going to be rebuilt, and that person or that family is likely going to move outside that community. So I think that's part of what it's an additional incentivization to myself and others to make sure that we address this property crisis. Again, but the answer is, I think that's one that I wouldn't take it lightly, and I would certainly consult with, you know, your agent and your, you know, any financial folks that you have to see if it's something you wanted to do. Well, look, and I've made this comment before, and I'll continue to make it. It is my belief, and this is not a popular belief, but it is my belief that the rating structure that we were in prior to, again, Laura, Delta, Zeta, and Ida was a false economy. I think that rates had fallen below adequate. And the only thing I can say to demonstrate that is the fact that we had 12 companies go insolvent. So I don't know that we'll ever get back to the, in your example, the 5,000. You know, I don't know what that is going to finally shake out to be. If it's maybe not 12, certainly not 12, because that's unaffordable. I don't know what that number needs to come back to that's adequate. But I think we have to acknowledge that we had a bunch of companies that were writing cheap insurance and driving the price below what it should have been. And the result was those companies weren't able to pay claims when we had it. So we got to make sure that the companies that do business here are solvent. As far as what I can do to make companies go down on their rates, I cannot. As a regulator, I cannot order an insurance company to lower their rates. What I can do is, and again, with the help of the legislature, create a competitive environment where more companies come in. And when you have 2 companies or 3 companies or 5 companies competing for your business, they're going to get your business based on price and on policy. And that's where you as a consumer win. Yes, ma'am.
To follow up on his question, what specifically did you offer these companies that they're now interested in coming back to Louisiana? What was offered to them? Or how did you make this an environment they want to come back to?
Well, we passed legislation. We addressed areas in the law where Louisiana is an outlier.
What does the legislation say?
Well, one of the bills that we passed allows, it's commonly referred to as a 3-year rule. And so we allowed the modification. I ask them to pass this because insurance companies and reinsurance companies highlighted the fact that Louisiana was the only state in America, the only jurisdiction on this planet that had that law. And so insurance companies said, well, I don't want to go do business there because you're telling me who I have to do business with. And reinsurers were saying, we're going to make our product more expensive because you're telling insurance companies who they have to do business with. So we modified it. There's still protection in place. Any new policy written August 1st is not subject to the 3-year rule. And starting as early as January 2025, but I think it's going to be mid-year at the earliest of next year, insurance companies that have policies subject to this can non-renew up to 5% of their policies. So there's protection there as well. That was one law that we changed. Another was that we addressed the rate making, or not rate making, but prior to the change in the law, insurance companies had to do what's called prior approval. They had to come to the department, and then once it's approved, then they could use the rate. The new process is they can file with the department, start using the rate, and then we have 45 days on the back end to make sure that it's actuarially justified. It just switched the 45 days. The process is about the same. It just put, they can start to use it if they want to versus waiting the 45 days up front. And then we modified the Fair Claims Act. And it was designed so that you understand and the insurance companies understand what the timelines are and what the expectations are for handling a claim in a timely manner. And I think it's good because everybody gets to play from the same set of rules. And if you know what the rules are, the outcome's going to be better. It also created a cure period so that if you have a dispute with your insurance company, you can go back and it gives them 30 days to come back and make you whole, if you will. So those were three specific areas that were cited where Louisiana needed to pay attention. And again, the insurance companies that have applications filed with me have told me we would not have filed to come and start doing business in Louisiana had you not passed those changes.
I have another question. I live in a small subdivision where most of us are senior citizens, our homes are older, and so we've all learned about the 4-to-5 group thing. But in our subdivision, one of the things that was a design feature was to put these ridge caps on our, down those, whatever you call those things. And the 4-to-5 group people won't let us put those
Right, and that's the first I've heard of that. I've not heard that there's been any issue from architectural, limitations on that. But I do think that you bring up a valid point, is that we need, as consumers, we need to be aware of things like that. If, the group that creates the fortified roof standards, if that's something that's a problem, then we need to know that so that we can let, for the next home that's built, they may not want that. They would rather have a fortified roof versus that architectural feature. So I know Adam's in the room somewhere. Adam's going to make a note of that. And look, by the way, I'm Adam Patrick with the Department of Insurance. As we go through this process, if you have any questions, any follow-up that you want us to do, make sure and grab Adam, and Adam's going to stand up now so that we know. But so after this concludes, come to myself, come to Adam, and if we need to exchange information so that we can follow up on any specific concerns you have, we certainly will. Yes, sir, in the back right there.
I know that flood insurance has different zoning and it's based on topography, but does the insurance industry with homeowners have a topography map of their own when it comes to the distance close or far away from a water, an area of water?
Yes, does the property market have a topographical map that how they do rating with regards to distance from water, if that summarizes the question? I believe they do. I've heard anecdotally that some insurance companies don't want to write particular, properties if they're within, some radius of the water on that. I haven't heard that that's a major problem, but again, this is part of what we're doing, is traveling at the state to hear, people's concerns on that. I don't know how that goes into rate making, but it's certainly something that we can look into. Specific to flood, obviously property companies, that's NFIP.
Yeah, but when I talk to my real estate, my insurance agent, he says, oh man, if you're south of I-12, then, the rates are probably going to be higher than if you're north of I-12. And I've heard it said also, especially down in my area, that if you were south of I-10, then, your rate structure is going to be higher than anybody who's north of I-10. I'd like to see that kind of clarified or
Always more expensive. I think now with technology, we're able to more accurately predict, or at least more accurately understand why and what's going into rates on that.
And one last follow-up, does zip codes have anything to do with that too? Yeah.
Does-
Or do they drill down to individual addresses, or is it kind of a zip code thing?
With regards to which?
The rates.
The rates?
In homeowners.
Oh, yeah, it's down to, well, it's zip code, but then it's also your home, it's square footage, it's architectural design, slope of roof, construction type. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it is about your individual property.
And so in general, it's, shall we say, a better decision to live away from the water now?
I'm not going to state that. I mean, look, we've also got a working coast, and that's the part of, again, the reason why we need to make sure and fix this property crisis, because, we aren't Florida. We don't have a bunch of folks that come in and just come to the beach and hang out. The people in Louisiana that live close to the coast, they work, and a lot of them fish too, right? But they work. And we need to make sure that we, continue on a path for affordable housing, as you said, closer to the water. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciate you speaking to me earlier. One thing I thought about was, like I told you, my rate went up 75% this year for the renewal. Similar to flood insurance policy, they have a cap of 18% a year until you get to the full amount, okay?
On
Legislatively, couldn't you implement a law that says, hey, we're gonna put a cap on you, we're not gonna do 75%. I know it's gonna increase with cost of living and everything else, but can we have a cap, a reasonable cap, 25, 20%, 30%, and legislatively solve that part of the problem?
So trying to put a government mandated cap is what I'm hearing. And look, you're right, on the NFIP, the federal program, they did do that. But even though they did that, I still hear of people that are getting rate increases way over 18%, right? But Look, and I'll tell you, and when I ran, I was very upfront. I am free market. I am a capitalist. And I think that financial theory has worked well and served America well. And I don't believe in putting mandatory rate caps on that. What I do believe in is creating a competitive marketplace where insurance companies can come and do business and thrive so that they can compete, so that you won't get that type of rate increase. Or if you do get a rate increase like that, you have other companies that you can go to that have more affordable insurance. So look, and at the same time, if I ask the legislature to give me a law that puts a rate cap on that, that is a red flag to people, any business, not just insurance, any business that says, oh, we want you to come to Louisiana, but by the way, we're going to tell you how much you can increase your rates or anything like that. I don't see that as a successful path for Louisiana. Yes, ma'am.
I was actually on the phone with someone today that works in one of the departments for the state. He basically his office was implemented by the previous governor, and what his job is basically his job is to make sure that all homes or every address in the state of Louisiana is to have accessible internet connection.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that department.
Yes.
Okay, so we had a call with him today, and we asked him about his success, because his goal was to entice providers to the state to be able to build out the availability to all of these households, so every household or every business had the accessibility to purchase it if they wish to. And he said the way that they were successful in doing so was that they received federal grant dollars to be able to fund the providers that came out and said, I want to be able to bid on this project. They provided them the funding to have them start that project, to make it accessible. But what that allowed those providers to do is then, or what the state to do was then to tell the provider, if we give you the grant money to build this infrastructure out and to provide it to the citizens, then you have certain regulations that you have to go by. So let's just say an area that might not have as many other competitors, they may say, okay, in Lower Terrebonne Parish, they're gonna put that there.
Right.
But what he said is that if you are a provider, AT&T, and they win that bid, that whatever their rate was in the city of New Orleans, that they would also have to provide that same competitive rate in other areas if they won those federal dollars to build this out. So it incentivized providers to be able to come here, and it also allowed the competitive rate around the whole state. Is that something that we can offer?
Look,
the
and
insurance company?
I forgot how many, that was the internet, the broadband, right, the Broadband Expansion Act program. I think they used
Infrastructure.
$1.8 billion. $1.8 billion the federal government gave to Louisiana to give to internet providers. Give me $1.8 billion and I will put fortified roofs all over South Louisiana, which will bring insurance costs down. I mean, that's what it was. That was $1.8 billion
It
given.
wasn't to the consumer, it was to the providers to
Right.
be able to allow it there, and then you had to be able to make them competitive in the market.
Right, and look, Louisiana, 2 years ago, my predecessor asked the legislature to restart an incentive program for insurance companies. The legislature allocated $45 million to give to insurance companies to come and write business in Louisiana. And they were told it will bring new companies to Louisiana. I think all 5 companies that got the $45 million were already doing business in Louisiana. So it did not incentivize and promote as they were told it would. So look, again, I am free market. I don't want to give state, federal dollars to companies to come in and say, do business here. I would rather create and focus on creating a competitive environment, which works in every other state. We're the most expensive. We need to focus on the fundamentals in Louisiana. Why are insurance companies, why is it so expensive in Louisiana? And that's what we're focused on. Can I go here and then you? Okay.
I'm a realtor, but I have people that I try to sell houses to
but a lot of them now are asking me, why don't I go get my license in Mississippi? Because Mississippi's 45 miles away. They're willing to work in Louisiana. So got a lot of people that are homegrown here going to Mississippi, making that drive, because Mississippi's Gulf Coast, I mean, you know, you're on the coast. So Mississippi and Alabama's insurance, how can we get competitive as a state of Louisiana to keep our people here more than?
Well, and thank you for making the point. I mean, that is at the heart of the matter. What we're talking about doing is creating a more competitive environment so that, like I said, you and I as consumers get to keep more money in our pocket. We get to keep our people in our state that want to live here and want to stay and grow. And we also get to have an opportunity to entice other businesses and people to come to Louisiana. It's about the economy. But if I can, just finish real quick. You talk about the cost in Mississippi and in Alabama. You know, Mississippi has their sliver of Gulf Coast is pretty narrow. And if you look, relatively speaking, the number of homes there versus Louisiana, it's not the same. The second thing I'll tell you is in Alabama, 12 years ago, they enacted their fortified roof program. They today have over 50,000 fortified roofs in their state. Today, Louisiana, we've got 1,400. 50,000. The reinsurance markets give them a substantial credit, if you will, for having all of those protected homes. The primary writers give credit for having that many protected homes. That's the goal that Louisiana needs to strive towards, is more fortified. It is the path.
But I've had several houses people that want to buy houses, that if their roof's over 10 years old, they have to get actual cash value. They
Yes.
lose. And then plus they're paying a higher deductible. How can we compete when Louisiana is so poor, that Mississippi used to be very poor, but now here we are, that it kills a lot of deals because people approve for certain dollars because that's what they can pay for, and then they can't find a house that they can afford, and then when they ask, do they have, how old is the hot water tank? What the hell does that have to do when roof is really the problem?
Well, look, I think that one of the things you're highlighting, and you talked about the outflow of people from Louisiana, and we talked about this earlier, we're the only state out of the 9 southern states, the outmigration. We were the only southern state that lost population. Let's go a little bit deeper into that. That means our housing stock, our existing housing stock, can meet demand because you don't have new people, you don't need new houses, even though we do have some organic growth there. So the average home in Louisiana is older than states where they're growing in their population because they're constantly building more homes, new homes all the time. So the older homes, as you said, older roofs. Insurance companies are now saying, because they get so many claims, and look, let's acknowledge a fact. In Louisiana, if you go and you decide, you know what, my roof is 15, 20, 17, whatever years old, and you look at it and you realize you need a new roof, what do people do?
They wait for a storm or hail.
They what?
Storm or a hail.
They wait for a storm or hail.
They tell you.
So the insurance companies have become the maintenance on roofs.
Well, not with the 2% and 3%
And-
and 5% hurricane deductibles.
Wow.
Yeah, that kind of kills you there.
So we're funding these new roofs through premiums. And so and what does the industry do? They have to, then they turn around and say, if you have over a certain age roof, it's going to be actual cash value. So, but again, new homes, newer roofs, they withstand storms, they're more insurable, more desirable. That's what we're trying to get to. Yes, ma'am.
Does the litigious nature of our state impact the rates both for property and for automobile?
Does the litigious nature of our state impact the rates of homeowners and automobile? Yes, it does. I mean, and look, I don't have the stats for other insurance companies, but Louisiana citizens, I do, and this is a public number. It's not. I'm not disclosing anything. I'm not allowed to. But Louisiana citizens, market of last resort, starting with Hurricane Katrina, and then Rita, and Ike, and Gustav, and the few we've had since then. Historically, 1% of the claims were litigated. Then we had Hurricane Laura in August of 2020. 9%. They went from 1% historically to all of a sudden, this hurricane, 9% were litigated. Delta was, I want to say it was 3.3 or 4%. Zeta was somewhere around 3%. And then Ida back up to 8.7%. We went over a decade of whenever you had us claim, the litigation rate was almost a flat 1%, and it spiked. So it's certainly a factor. And look, insurance companies, they pass on that cost to you and I. Some people deserve and need to litigate. I'll always say that. And you need to be able to when it's justified. But when you have a spike like that, you've got to look into it and figure out what's driving that. Look, I'm sorry, I was going to get this lady next. Yes, ma'am.
I attended a real estate seminar in April, put on by UNO, about continuing education. They said the insurance companies didn't want the grant money, like you mentioned. They don't want to get paid to come here until their inventory of residential homes has more fortified roofs available, because they want the less risk of having an issue down the line. But I can't imagine how many years or decades it's gonna take to get there.
Well,
That's the fear. What are we gonna do between now and then?
look, and that is, and that's why, again, like I said, focus on the things that we can control. I can control, to a degree, the regulatory environment. We, and the legislators and elected officials can control the legislative, the legal environment of that. Collectively, we can start to control the physical risk, the homes and the commercial properties through better building codes, more stringent building codes, through the fortified roof program that we mentioned, and others, and that's what we're focused on. Like I said, Alabama, 12 years ago, they were not a good place for insurance companies to do business. Today they are. And look, I'll acknowledge, a lot of people don't have 12 years. A lot of people don't have 12 months to wait with the current crisis we're in. But we have to start somewhere. And again, my focus is on doing things that are going to help insurance companies want to come do business, and quality insurance companies that want to come do business in the state. I said, that gets you next, ma'am.
Kind of piggybacking off of what she said, her question. We were talking to our realtor just yesterday. We were thinking about downsizing. We're getting older. And we were looking at some property. And we were talking about selling our home and so on and so forth. And he said, you might need a new roof. If it's over 10 years old, they can't get insurance to sell your house if your roof is over 10 years old.
Mhm.
So then you say, okay, then it needs to be a fortified roof. And then that, of course, that's a lot more expensive. So you're looking, how much?
3,500 more.
Only 3,500 more?
A car, like if your roof is $15,000, it's about 3,500, you gotta add to that.
I heard it was more than that, but, I guess the question is, you get to the point where you're stuck. I mean, you can't move, you can't really start, but you can't move. And if your roof is a little over 10 years old, what do you know?
Well, look, and that
I
is,
mean, the insurance company can say, we're not going to cover that house because the roof is over 10 years old.
and that is a consequence of being in the crisis that we're in right now, when we don't have a lot of companies that want to come in. But you do have, and again, I know it's not attractive for a lot of people, but Louisiana Citizens does have to write you in that scenario.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's not.
I know, but my point is that if you can't find the other insurance, you always have Louisiana Citizens as a safety net.
For me, it would be a problem for anybody wanting to buy my house, which limits the number of people that would be interested because the roof is over 10 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
Even it might be a 30, 40-year roof.
Well, again, the competitive market helps address that. Yes, sir, in the back.
I'm a sample one, and I realize that. I realize as a person in insurance, you deal in much larger ends. But I have to give you my experience, which is contrary to many of the things you said. So I am leaving because of all this. So I will be out of migration within 12 to 18 months.
got a lot of points. I'm not gonna stop you. I want to try and address them. Well, I'm not gonna be able to remember all of these.
All the storms you mentioned, I have not had any water anywhere near my street. But they put me in the same risk pool as somebody a mile away who their street floods every time we have a southeast wind. But all of my rates go up based on somebody else's property. So this is, capitalism has gone amok. It is not solving anything.
Thank you for standing, because a lot of people who aren't standing, we can't hear them.
What's that, you can't hear them? Okay,
Not if they're up there, I heard them.
gotcha.
Understood.
We'll make sure that,
Thank you.
Wade, we'll make sure that you hear the, I will repeat the question if you can. So, and again, sir, I know you said something about adjusters. And I'll tell you something that one of the regulatory changes I did when I came in is, like I said, I assumed office in January. In April, I held a meeting. I called the top 25, the 25 property writers by volume, so the biggest 25 in the state. And I had them send their most senior claims person, and we had a conference. And when I say a conference, we had a meeting. And I stood in front of them and told them what my expectations were from the insurance companies, how they come and respond to claims, how they adjust. I told them I am going to hold them accountable. It's different. You've heard new sheriff in town. And so that is one of the things that we've done. You say, insurance companies or adjusters get incentivized by different ways. That's not my decision. That is their business model. However they do it, they have choice on that. And some work different than others. And look, you don't like capitalism, I don't like socialism. So we can agree on a difference there. He said it wasn't working.
Just to give the commissioner a break. My name is Jay Gallet. I'm state representative for District 104. This is my district. And sir, I'm sorry that you've experienced what you've experienced, and it strikes me as someone who's born and raised here in the state of Louisiana, as all of us are. I'm Baptist Hospital as well. And it breaks my heart to hear that you want to leave. I understand that my insurance has gone up threefold. Everyone's has. And I just want to, and we're all very sympathetic. That's why we're here. And I'm a member of the House Insurance Committee. I sit in on all of the bill debates, the legislative debates, and I'm voting for everything. Because like Commissioner Temple said, it's not going to be, we didn't get here overnight, it's not going to be fixed overnight. And I get your frustration, and I get your anger, because I feel the same way. It's wrong, it's unfair, but at the end of the day, and I want to highlight this point, is that these insurance companies do not have to be here. They don't. And we used to live in a capitalist system. And so, all my small business owners out here, money coming in, money coming out. That's the very simplest terms I can put when it comes to insurance to business. It's the same thing for insurance companies. Higher risk equals higher premiums. Lower risk equals lower premiums. As far as the NFIP and the 2.0 changes, I'm not a fan of them. I think they're greatly flawed. Just as a side note, if you're looking for flood insurance, find an independent carrier. Some of your homes may qualify to have your flood be included with your hazard, but you've got to have a certain age home and live in a certain area. I just wanted to throw that out there. I found that by accident. I found an independent carrier who was willing to underwrite my flood with my hazard policy, but I lived in a certain place and I had a certain age. My house was a certain age. The point I want to make is this. We are working diligently. I want rates to come down just like Commissioner Temple does, and just like my colleagues here up on stage. And trust me, we feel your pain, we feel your frustration. But to a degree, we are at the whim of the insurance companies. They do kind of hold the cards because we need them to be here. And if we're going to create an atmosphere where it's not competitive and it's too difficult for them to write business, then either A, they're not gonna come, or they're gonna do what they're doing right now. And I have a friend of mine, to the gentleman in the back, who's a roofer, and he tells me what you tell me all the time. A lot of your roofs are good for another 10 years, are good for another 15 years, but what the insurance companies are looking at, everybody in total, okay? They're not necessarily looking at the individual policies, and so, and I'm just speculating here, and I hate to speculate, but they're looking at the homes in Southeast Louisiana, and they I would imagine that they're, without having information, they're throwing their hands up and saying, this is the rule, this is what we're gonna go with, and this is the only way we can justify doing business here down in Southeast Louisiana. Is it fair? No. Do I like it? No. But until we continue chipping away at this, I do believe in time the rates will come down, because let's face it, we have a home affordability issue right now. We do. And that's what we're trying to mitigate. So I don't know if that helps, but I just wanted to offer my perspective as a House member who sits on the Insurance Committee. Yes, Councilmember O'Brien.
Yeah, I know there's been discussion with some of the state legislators about trying to work together with the southern states from Texas through Florida. Is there any movement on that? Do y'all still feel that that would be a realistic way to divide the risk? Do you think it's even possible that the other states would want to work with us? Where are we on that idea?
Commissioner Temple, do you have information to offer on that? Because I don't.
And thank you for that question. And what you're talking about is creating like a regional reinsurance collective, or even a federal. And I had a question today about creating a federal reinsurance program. And my response there is, do you want the NFIP to administer that?
No.
I just, the federal government is not good at that type of business. As far as a regional, and this session, a study resolution was passed. And so the insurance department, we are working, and we have a report due, I think sometime next, the first quarter of next year, to look and explore that, to see if there's any interest, if it makes financial sense, if, you know, if that's even something that's viable. And so we will have a report, again, I think the February or March of next year. It's due to the legislature.
Well, I will say, in conversations with people, a regional approach might have some support if people are afraid of a federal type control.
Yes. Yes, sir, on the end here, yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, I can't see. Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Can you stand up? Well, they want to hear your question.
I'll talk about it. Okay. First, I'd like to support the issue that you all have, the issue, but y'all trying to make it more competitive here. Because if you think about it, the more people you have, they now spread their risk. The less insurance companies you have, they all figure out they have a risk. And so I think it's best if we do have more competition, because then you make more insurance companies here that divide into mathematics. It divides into all the risk and it spreads it out. Unless some people are very low in prices and the premium, then everybody wants that. It won't work. But I'd like to share with y'all my experience with my insurance company that I've had for 12 years. And I finally put in a claim. In 12 years, I've never put a claim in. But I live in Covington, right by 12. And I was noticing in my neighborhood that they had a lot of roofers, going on houses and inspecting. I don't know the first thing about the roof, I live by myself. So I said, well, I'm gonna call a roofer I knew to come inspect my roof. So just sorted it back. So I got a roofer come out there, and he got up on my roof, he gave me a full-fledged report, it was very, like 20 pages long, about 20 pictures. And I looked at it, he went and reviewed it with me. I had hail damage. I had big quarter-size spots in my roof. It was determined to be hail damage. You go Google on the internet, it's hail damage. I said, okay, I'm gonna put a claim in. Put a claim in to my insurance company, we set up an appointment, they came out, the guy got on the roof. He hardly could walk, he was scared to walk the roof, to take pictures, so he might take it under his hand. He goes into his insurance company, the field adjuster says, they made a mistake. I don't believe that. But anyway, they made a mistake, they said they're gonna renew, it went from $7,000 to $13,000. I lost my roofing because they don't know I replaced it yet. So I lost my credits for having good roofing material, and they charged me another $5,000 for roofing material. So now I'm gonna go back with my receipts and hope I definitely will get the 5,000 returned, and hopefully I get the rest. But to go from 7 to 13, to cancel me like they did, and if you look on their website themselves, they have pictures, have hail damage, let us show you how. And so they connect to a roof, and guess what the pictures look like? Exactly like my roof. And to tell me I didn't have hail damage, they stripped the roof and went to just the gutters, and it was the chicken in the egg. So just wanted to share, and
Well,
it's taken me from May to today to take, and now I gotta hopefully get a reduced premium when I'm following the receipts. I just wanted to share this.
Well, and thank you for sharing that story, and look, I'll say that, I'll admit that doesn't sound like the way the claims process should operate, correctly? And as you and I were talking about outside earlier, that is a scenario where, as the regulator, I need to know when things like that happen. And there is a process where you can file a complaint, and I know people don't want to file it, but I have, since I've become commissioner, I am aware that when you file a complaint, it does allow us to go on your behalf, talk to your insurance company, find out where the system broke down, why it broke down, hopefully fix it for you, but also hope, does it make it so that that doesn't happen to somebody after you. So, like I said, there's Adam. Let him have your information. We'd be happy to start that process for you. Yes, sir.
We got a microphone, so everybody can hear.
Got a microphone now. All right. Yes, sir.
So, just to piggyback off of homeowners, car insurance.
Yes, sir.
Ever since I've been in Louisiana since 1989, I can tell you can't do anything in the legislature for car insurance because of the lawyers. Look on TV and there's a lawyer on TV every 18 minutes about litigation. What are you doing about this?
Right, so look, in car insurance over the last, especially, I think if you really look at it, since 2000, 2001 is when it's really, historically, Louisiana was somewhere on the ranking as far as, where we were on expense. We were around 15, 16, somewhere in that area, but that we started around 2000 or so, ticking upwards, where we're now in number one. We're the most expensive. You talk about the advertising. Advertising is a First Right Amendment. We cannot limit people's ability to advertise. I don't think you can legislate that. So, but look, I think part of what, and I've said this, and I'll continue to say this, I think what we need to focus in on what is the message that's being advertised. There are certainly times when you need to have legal representation. There's certainly, there are scenarios where your insurance company didn't repair your vehicle, or they took way longer than they should have. They drug the claim out, or they didn't pay your medical, or they denied or delayed your medical. There are scenarios where you need to have representation. I think the stats in Louisiana show is that we go above that. The other thing that I'll tell you is that in Louisiana, we are twice as likely to claim bodily injury when we get in an auto accident. Twice the national average. And then we litigate almost 2.5 times more than the national average. And so we've got to address that. We've got to acknowledge it and then figure out, and when I say figure out, meaning we've got to agree what needs to be done legislatively to correct that. Because as you heard earlier today, insurance, it's like any other business. It's dollar in and dollar out. And if insurance companies are paying more dollars out than they're taking in, they have to either raise rates or leave. And we need to address why they're paying out more than they're taking in. And so, look, I know I'm committed to it. There's legislators that are committed to it, to addressing that, because, like I said, we don't have a frequency problem in Louisiana. We don't get in a far greater number of more accidents than the national average. A little bit more, but not much. So we've got to address why are insurance companies paying out what they are when we do have an auto claim. And I can tell you, the legislature, they have had for the last 4 months, they've been having meetings. And you have House House Insurance, Senate Insurance, House Judiciary A, and House Civil Law, and Senate Judiciary A. Those 4 committees, those are the ones that regulate a lot of these changes we're talking about. They've met 4 times. The first meeting was 9.5 hours. And we're talking about what is driving the cost. Why do insurance companies pay out so much on an auto accident in Louisiana? And we're gonna go through, I think, December to continue to let everybody have a chance to say what they wanna say and make their position, and then we're gonna bring the legislative solutions to that, so.
And just to piggyback on what Commissioner Temple is saying is that we have met, session ended at the beginning of June, and we've been back 4 times. We recently had, our most recent one was last Friday. And to your point, sir, about auto insurance, there are some things that we are attempting to do, but it's going to take a little bit of a lift in the legislature. But those things are on our radar. There are some bills that we're trying to put forward to get to the governor's desk that we think in the long term will have some effect on our auto insurance, because while our auto insurance is going up, the other element, the other entity that's feeling the pain is the commercial vehicle insurance. And you want to talk about people leaving the state, if you have if you have a business name in your truck, your insurance is going up and has gone up, and it continues to go up. I know I have some business leaders in the community here in St. Tammany Parish. They're selling off vehicles because they can't afford the auto insurance. The Trucking Association has been very vocal about this. The loggers, who have a lot of trucks, their insurance is going up 2-3 times. So again, I come up here as a member of the House Insurance Committee. It is on our radar, and we continue to meet. And there is some legislation that we continue to work on to help address this. I know that probably is not great consolation, but all I can say is we are focused on it. We live here, just like you all do. And as your rates go up, our rates go up. And I'm not a millionaire, and I feel it just like you all do. Yes, sir.
Do you think more aggressive traffic enforcement would have any effect on auto rates, such as red light cameras and stuff like that?
Did you all hear that question?
But the fact is that we don't have that many. I've heard the same. I do think that distracted driving does contribute to the wrecks, and we need to look at some of that stuff. I've heard driver's education. The fact that we have more DUIs, I think, than the national average, but that doesn't drive the fact that we get injured twice as more as other neighboring states, and that we litigate more than twice as much. So that wouldn't impact what you're suggesting.
Legislature gets involved as far as getting these lawyers, which is the Morris Boxer world, that have caused this over a 25-year period, maybe longer, that type of thing, and the legislatures can do something.
Well, the legislature is doing something.
I guess because I've been around politics for 35 years, so I have my feelings about a lot of things. But I have people that now are going to Mississippi and getting their insurance, because Mississippi rule, you can go to Mississippi, you can live in Louisiana, or have places, and they've got their address there, and they're getting different insurance rates.
Right. But I think the point is that
I'm seeing